And now we're going to talk about Hitchcock.
Frank Dello Stritto.
Frank, how are you?
All right, you're calling early, Joe. We got lots of time tonight, huh?
Yes, and Jeff, how's the audio for Frank? It's great. Okay, Jeff Dearman's our director.
Okay.
In front of me, Frank, I have my VHS of Hitchcock Volume 1.
Okay.
Now, what I love about these VHS tapes is, as much as I like DVDs better for play, on the back, 39 steps, 86 minutes, it's got black and white. They're all black and white. It's got the stars. It's like having a good old vinyl album in your hand, you know?
Well, what I like about VHS tapes is that I can stop them at a certain point, take it out of the machine, bring it to another machine, and start out right where I started.
Ah.
And when I give, and I can't do that with DVDs. When I give talks on horror movies, you know, I want to show clips from like a dozen movies.
Right.
With DVD, you can't do that with DVDs. So I still have, you know, when I give talks about horror movies, that's the only ones I have. But any movie I think I might mention in a talk, I have to have a VHS of it because the technology doesn't let me do anything else.
Now, what's funny is the VHS has four movies, and as you know, that Hitchcock thing I got has 20 episodes, 20 movies, and some of the Alfred Hitchcock show. Mm-hmm. You have the list in front of you, right?
I have the list. Well, we're going to talk about 3 of them tonight. Is that correct?
Whatever you like. You're the boss. You're programming the station.
Okay. Okay. Well, since let's see, I'm out of town next week. I'm going to be in Turkey next week, so I can't talk to you next week.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask you, what are you doing in Turkey? If you can say.
Oh yeah. No, I'm a secret agent on the Orient Express, getting secrets out of Russia. No.
I thought you were getting us information for our show.
Yeah. Well, anything I can tell you, I will. No, my wife has always wanted to see Turkey, and so this is her Christmas present. And it's also her Valentine's Day present and her birthday present, because this is not cheap. But anyway. So, no, nothing exotic. We're tourists.
Turkey is exotic.
Yeah, well, I mean, Turkey's exotic, but my reasons for going are not clandestine or business-related or anything.
That's what they all say when they are clandestine.
That's right. I have to say that. If I told you the truth, I'd have to shoot you, and then they'd shoot me.
I hope you find some Bela Lugosi stuff in the libraries.
Not likely.
Yeah, I know.
It's not impossible that he had Turkish blood in him somewhere along the line. If you look closely at his eyes, there's a certain Oriental tinge to them. But not likely. He has nothing to do with Turkey that I know of.
Speaking of films, as we're here, Harriet Schock just rang me. I rejected it, of course, because we're on the air, but she wrote the theme to Berry Gordy's Last Dragon.
Okay.
So I know you like film, so I bridge the gap between the music world and the film world with movies.
Hey, if I had ever heard of Berry Gordy's Last Dragon, I might be able to say something intelligent, but I'll leave that to you.
Well, Berry Gordy's Last Dragon, I'm thrilled with it because Harriet wrote the theme, but sung by Smokey Robinson. But it's a kung fu movie from the kung fu era, you know.
All right.
And
I didn't realize Berry Gordy's the Motown man, right?
Yep, very good, Frank. Wow.
Hey, I'm coming up the slope there on knowing about music figures. I had no idea he produced movies, but
oh yeah, he produced Diana. He bet the house. The guy was really a risk taker because he bet the whole Motown house on Lady Sings the Blues. Mm-hmm. Of course, Diana was his girlfriend.
I remember that.
While he was married. The worst kept secret in the world that he was dating Diana Ross.
I guess I didn't know it was a secret. I mean, if I knew it, it had to be pretty
well, I mean, the guy was married and he was, going out with Diana, which is why it was Diana Ross and the Supremes. She's dating the president of the label.
Yep, well.
But he bet the house on Lady Sings the Blues, as the urban legend has it.
Well, maybe. I mean, a lot of these very successful men get there by playing double or nothing, and they win.
But he was already there. I mean, he wanted to get to the next level, but I couldn't do that. I couldn't just take the whole thing that you already have and go that far in, but he did.
Well, nor could I, but that's what makes great men. Walt Disney was there, but he bet the farm on Disneyland and was told not to. Warner Brothers wasn't there, but they bet the farm on sound, and that came in big for them. So, that the history is written by people who take chances.
I like that quote.
Hey, you can have it. I just made it up. It's probably not original. It seems so easy to say, but you can have it.
History's made by people who take chances.
Well, I used to say history is made by unhappy people. If you're happy, you're not going to change anything. But if you're unhappy, you might go out there and change the world.
Huh. Well, I'm a happy-go-lucky guy, and I'm going to change the world. And we're doing it right now here on Visual Radio Live.
Yes, we are. Okay, you're showing. Okay, I'm going to talk about 3 movies, which I guess you'll be showing over the next 3 weeks, starting next week, right?
Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks. Yeah, and well, before you do, when you're coming back from Turkey?
Well, I'll be back. Let's see. I'll be out next week. I'll actually be get back the Wednesday thereafter. So 2 Wednesdays from now. So I'll be in America for the next show, but I'll be right off a plane, and we can talk if you like. But I might be jet lagged, so you might be able to interrogate me, and I'll give carelessly truthful answers.
All right. So today is the 10th, and next week's the 17th. You'll be in Turkey.
Yeah.
And then the 25th you'll be back. But if you don't want to talk, that's okay. And then we can do the 31st. The February 1st.
31st, I'll be back up to speed over my jet lag.
Cool. February 1st, I guess.
February 1st, January 31st is the Thursday. February 1st, I think, is the Friday.
Okay, good. So, right, January 31. All right. So, first movie up.
Easy Virtue. It's a 1928 movie, and in 1928, silence movies are basically dying. They're all but dead in America, and they're still around in Britain because the big thing slowing down the transition to sound is the money it takes to put a sound system into a theater. So there's still silent movies being made. Not too long after this, Hitchcock. Hitchcock is not even 30 yet, by the way. He's 29. He has, he has met and married his wife, Alma, who was played by Helen Mirren in the movie that came out a few weeks ago. And so he's been married to her, and I think while he's making this movie, or shortly before it, she gives birth to their first and only child, Patricia Hitchcock, who is still with us. I think she lives in California, lives a quiet life. I think she's heir to whatever Alfred Hitchcock had, and since he kept a lot of rights to what he made, especially the TV show, unless she sold them, she is pretty well set. Anyway, first of all, the 2 silent movies I'm talking about tonight, I'm surprised how good they were. I kind of dread it when you ask me to watch silent movies, because I'm not a big silent movie fan, but these are pretty good. This is a serious movie. Starts off in a courtroom with a divorce. And, divorce doesn't impress us much these days, but when I was writing my first book on Bela Lugosi, I interviewed an elderly Englishman who had worked with him, and he told me that when he was a young man, he was fired from his job because he got a divorce, and that was a company rule: no divorced people can work here. And when I pressed him on that, he said he agreed with the rule. He thought he should have been fired. So our mentality is changing that. But when you watch this movie, it starts with a divorce, which in itself was a very scandalous thing. And this woman is in divorce. Divorce, like I guess this is fairly well-to-do people, so it has made the scandal sheets, and she is living with that stigma. So this is a fairly serious movie. It's not a comedy. It's not. Hitchcock has made what we would call a Hitchcock movie. In 1926, he made The Lodger about Jack the Ripper, so we would call that a Hitchcock movie. This is not really what we think of when we think of a Hitchcock movie. It's kind of a serious social drama among the upper set, and when a woman who once branded as a divorcee, as a loose woman, and like it or not, in those days, I think when these things happened, most of the blame was piled on the woman's head. And she has to live with that, so she remarries, but tries to keep her identity secret. And that's all I'll go into, because then the rest of the plot is there. But this is not a happy ending movie, and it's rather serious in tone, and it's surprisingly watchable. The print I was able to find to watch for this, I watched a couple of nights ago, had no music to it, and I like them. I think a good musical score really enlivens a silent movie. I watched this in total silence, and it was quite good. So I can really recommend this to your people.
Hey, Frank, I got a couple of questions to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Were these done in London?
Actually, I was just counting that. These would have been shot in London, but they had location shooting on the Riviera. So the historians among you, if you watch closely, you'll see shots of the Riviera as it was in 1928. The crew actually went down there. Now, this happened more in British silent movies than you think, but all they had to do was pile a cameraman, and a director, and some of the cast onto a train, and across the coast, across the channel, a train to the south, and so within 24 hours, maybe a little over 24 hours, you could have your whole crew down there. And the reason, you've seen King Kong, right?
Of course.
Okay,
many times.
The original. Okay, of course you have. The Carl Denham comes on shore, and he's got a cameraman, and if you watch it closely, you'll realize he's making a silent movie because there's no sound equipment. and we don't realize how easy it was to go on location before the age of sound, because basically you had a camera, and sometimes you had a hand-cranked camera. So it wasn't a big technological leap to go over there. So they do that, and so anyway, if anybody wants to see the way the Riviera looked, you'll get some nice shots of it from 1928. And I believe that's where the Hitchcock cameo is. Of the three movies that we'll be talking about tonight, if I ever get to the second and third one, this is the only one that has a Hitchcock cameo. Again, Alfred Hitchcock is not yet making regularly what we think of as Hitchcock films, so his cameo is not a given in it, but there is in this one. And he's strolling by a tennis court, and I'm trying to remember. I briefly caught him last night. I think they're in the Riviera when it happens, and I looked it up later. It happens 13 minutes into the film.
And I want to tell our audience, we're talking about Easy Virtue, a 1928 film by Alfred Hitchcock. And my question to you now is, he was employed by a British film company, I assume.
Yeah, I believe this was Gainsborough.
So
Hollywood hasn't discovered him yet. No, actually, he's had a big hit with The Lodger, 1926, but he is not Hollywood bound yet. So he is making British movies, and I believe this is Gainsborough Films.
Now, The Lodger, big hit in America?
As far as I know, yes.
Okay, so they
Britain. Well, you bring up a good point. There was a real gradient for getting British movies into America. So it was a big hit in Britain, and it kind of put him on the map. I think it did well in America, but it certainly wasn't a showstopper in America. But British movies were seen as kind of inferior, even by the Brits. And when sound came in, it even made it worse, because you had Hollywood producing in English, so English language films coming from Hollywood were just so much slicker and higher budgeted and more famous people. I can't honestly say I know a lot about the box office in America, but this is where The Lodger is where eyes first went on him. Nobody in either of the first two films will be talking about this, and the second film, which I guess we better start transitioning to because we only have so much time.
Okay.
Farmer's Wife. There's precious few people in them that I've even heard of, and so that these would be unknowns to the American box office. So there's no star appeal to them.
The Farmer's Wife is the title?
The Farmer's Wife, and I believe it was filmed before Easy Virtue, but released about the same time. It is silent. It starts off rather seriously. It starts off at the deathbed of a woman, and the farmer's wife actually dies in the first few minutes of the film. But then it slowly becomes a comedy, and basically the farmer is looking for a new wife, and I'm not going to give you the plot, but he through the course of the movie he proposes to I kind of lost count 4 or 5 other women, and I may not even have a good count there because the only print I was able to find to watch for this show was a 94-minute print, and the official running time when it was released was 129 minutes, 2 hours and 9 minutes. A long movie for those days. Even Easy Virtue, the first movie I talked about, is 83 minutes. Not a particularly short movie for those days. So I don't know how long. I don't know what you're showing, but it's not a short movie. And I don't think the length helps it. It could be. For a comedy, it could have gone at a best pace. I think Hitchcock was funny when he was trying to be macabre, but I think when he made an out-and-out comedy, he was a little off his mark. He's on his mark here, though, but I wish the speed had come up. And what I think again, for the historians in your audience, you might get a good handle on what life was like in the 1920s on a British farm. You really get that feel for it. And I'm pretty sure this was studio made, but certainly some of the scenes they went out to the countryside and filmed them right there. I believe this is also a Gainsborough film.
Well, I'm going to ask you this question.
Go ahead.
Alma, who had a big impact on Psycho, he's married to Alma. They're having a child, Patricia.
Yeah.
At this time, 1928, 1929?
Yeah, well, Patricia is born, I believe, mid-1928, so Alma has had her baby, I think, when... Well, no, Alma may well be pregnant when this movie is made, because this movie was made a little bit before that.
So I wonder, because she was his boss at one point, right?
She was his boss, and then she quickly became... Well, you know, he was a director, but... well, before he was a director, she was his boss. And then, but that didn't... I mean, she wasn't his boss for a long time. It's kind of like, you know, Michelle Obama was Barack Obama's boss at one point, but
I did not know that.
But
okay.
then she became his wife, and then she became his collaborator. And you know, he gave her credit in some movies, but she was much shyer than the woman that we saw in the Hitchcock movie that recently came out. She was much more in the background, which is what she wanted. She didn't want any glamour, so she was happy not to get credit for the work. But he gave her some credit here and there.
So do you think that she had a big influence on both Easy Virtue and The Farmer's Wife?
I doubt it. Because you know, Hitchcock is not a power. Hitchcock is a hired director. So I mean, she often the credit she does get is kind of script credit. You know, additional dialogue by, co-scripted by, continuity by, those kind of credits. I'm trying to remember. I don't think her name appears in either of the credits. Her name appears in the credits of the third film, Jamaica Inn, but not on the first two. So. And plus, Easy Virtue, I should have mentioned, was based on a Noel Coward play, so they had a pretty well laid out script there. That they just had to bring to the cinema. So the short answer is I don't have a clue how much input she had, but I don't think it was necessarily much on these early films, because Hitchcock was still a hired hand. He didn't have a piece of the action. He was paid a salary for these movies. We've
got 8 minutes, so you've got time to see what you want to talk about.
Okay. Well, the third movie is Jamaica Inn, 1939, and it is, of course, as a sound film. The first two are silent. It is the last movie that Hitchcock will make in Britain before he makes his big move to Hollywood to work for David Selznick, and he'll make Rebecca and Suspicion under Selznick, and then he won't last long with Selznick, but he'll move on and make the classics of the 40s and 50s that we know. So this is basically where he says goodbye to Britain. He'll come back to Britain later and make movies, but this is where he shifts his base to California. Not Hitchcock's favorite film, and that's because I'm pretty sure his star, Charles Laughton, was not an easy man to work with.
The Hunchback himself.
The Hunchback himself. In fact, the same year he will play the Hunchback. And actually, this film is the first film of Maureen O'Hara, who would go to America basically with Laughton and make the Hunchback of Notre Dame that same year, 1939. And Laughton and Hitchcock got along, as far as I know, got along personally quite well. I mean, they liked each other, fellow Brits and all that. But Laughton was, when it came an actor, Laughton was a terribly insecure man, and he needed a lot of nurturing from his director. And if you've read about Hitchcock's style, that's not exactly his forte.
Right.
Hitchcock did not have fond memories of this movie. It was a big hit in Britain, so it was a fond farewell for him, but he did not consider this one of his happier experiences. He wasn't very happy with the film itself. And again, this is not a short film, and it could use some tightening. In fact, you know, by our standards, you know, we live at a faster pace now. We expect our movies to go at a faster pace. All three of these movies could use some tightening, but it's you know, it's always a joy to see Laughton, and he has this kind of grotesque makeup on. Not as bad as he'll have the same year as Hunchback of Notre Dame. But he'll have that on there. I guess as a sign that Hitchcock wasn't too crazy about this movie, there's ample places for him to put a cameo of himself in, but he does not. He's not in this movie. Part of the fun of watching Hitchcock movies.
Oh, yeah.
Try to spot him. You know, it's so easy to go online. You can go online and Google Hitchcock cameos, and you'll get a list of the 39 cameos he made. But I try not to do that for a Hitchcock movie where I don't know where he is. I try to spot him. Sometimes I do. A lot of times I don't. Sometimes he makes it easy, and sometimes he makes it hard.
Can Marvel Comics Stan Lee get to the same number?
Okay.
You know, he makes a cameo in Spider-Man and all his movies.
Okay.
X-Men. You know, Stan Lee is the owner of Marvel Comics.
Yeah. I know who Stan Lee is. Used to get him convinced with, but I know who Stan Lee is.
And we got 5 minutes left.
Okay, 5 minutes. Well, it is, Hitchcock made 52 movies, and I guess you have 20 of them in public domain. So you can give your audience over the 3 or 4 months to come a decent profile of Hitchcock. Of course, his super classics are locked up in copyright, so you're not going to get those anytime soon. But you'll have some pretty good movies in the public domain, and one of them is Hitchcock's first real classic, and that is The 39 Steps. And I guess we'll be talking about that in about a month or so.
Yes. Now I want to go over some notes here. Okay, so we're going to be watching Easy Virtue, and then we're going to watch The Farmer's Wife, and then what's the Jamaica what?
Jamaica Inn.
Jamaica Inn.
Yeah, Tale of Smugglers. Smugglers in Cornwall.
Ah. Now, I have a question. Could someone take these public domain movies and add dialogue, dub it?
As far as I know, Joe, you can do anything you want to them.
Oh, yeah, but I'm saying, would dubbing work where they knew they were filming silently? The people still had their lips moving, right?
Oh, yeah. You got to be a little careful because sometimes the dialogue they say is not the dialogue you see on the dialogue cards. So, yeah, I mean, you could take a silent movie and dub it over if you wanted to.
I think maybe I might try that with one of these. Okay. Because we had a director on, I got to have him back, and he took Nosferatu, and he colorized it, or he 3D'd it. He put 3D and I think colorization. So that's kind of cool, you know?
Have you ever heard of a movie called What's Up, Tiger Lily?
Yes.
With Woody Allen got a Japanese movie and basically took out the dialogue and put words in their mouths that the actors never said. And God, it's been a long time since I've seen that. It was pretty funny when I saw it. I don't know if I'd still find it funny, but it's been done, Joe. So you're going in a long, fine tradition. No,
what you're telling me is this is something different. I like that idea. Maybe I'll do that.
Okay.
Because I want to use some of the Wizard of Oz. I'll let the cat out of the bag. I've got those public domain movies, and I'm doing this film, The Saltwater Summers. So we're going to integrate the footage from the Wizard of Oz, the original Frank L. Baum movies, where he was the director.
Okay, footage from the silent movies you're going to integrate with...
I'll make up dialogue. That's a great idea because I thought, like, wow, let's get the dialogue and then have actors say it. But what a great idea. I didn't know about Tiger Lily. Just make up your own.
Yeah, look it up. Woody Allen, I don't know if it's his first movie, but it was kind of not a joke, but it was kind of a one-timer. He had no intention of doing this. He just did it as a joke. I guess they got the Japanese movie for a song, maybe for free. I don't know. So, yep, go ahead. And I send me a copy. I'll review it. Then you can show it on your show.
Sounds good. Now, couple of things. We got 2 minutes left. Are you going to be taking your laptop on the plane and writing your next book?
Actually, I'm taking the draft that I have of the book I'm working on now, and I'm going to read it. It's gotten awfully long, so about 100 pages has to come out, which surprisingly I don't mind doing at all.
And you can create a website and put some of the outtakes on the web. People like that.
Oh yeah. I think they'll make decent magazine articles on their own, so I will do that. So I have to get the tie size down. It's just too big a book. Nobody wants to read a book that long.
Okay, and I'm going to ask Anthony if we can maybe do Nosferatu and the Wizard of Oz stuff down the road.
Yeah.
Let's wrap up now. Frank, it's been an honor talking to you this time. Have fun in Turkey.
Thank you very much, and I can't wait to get back and talk to you.
All right, man. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye. And thank you, Jeff Dearman and Judy, and I'm going to talk a little bit more, but I'll say again, the views and opinions on Visual Radio are those of the guests and the host, that's me, and not necessarily those of WinCAM, its board of directors, staff, and members, and all our affiliate stations, Manhattan Neighborhood Network and everything. Thanks, Jeff Dearman, so much for coming down here tonight and being part of the show. And John Byers was insightful. I'm heading over to the Medford City Council. It is January 10th. 2013. We'll be back next week with Stephen Lee Bieber, author of Heebie-Jeebies at CBGB's. He has been on the show before years ago. He's coming back next week to sit right here. We've got Valerie Vinay in the queue. She's going to be talking about her new movie. And Harriet Shock called. We've got lots of guests coming up in the next few weeks, so stay tuned. Visual Radio.